Okay, Assalamu alaikum. This would be the last chapter we have this semester, which is bankruptcy. I meant to keep it to be the last chapter because it's bankruptcy and we don't want to be a bankrupted. We want to be always successful. We want to make our best to be successful in our classroom, in our life, and not to be bankrupted. Bankruptcy, one of the most important chapters at all. Bankruptcy is something we have to study, we have to learn, something we have to keep in our minds, because if you want to work in business, if you would like to be working as senior employees, managers, directors, and if you want to be an accountant in a company in the future, you have to be careful. You have to look at bankruptcy, you have to understand the meaning of bankruptcy and who can be a bankrupt and how can we apply for bankruptcy, when, why. There are many questions in our minds and you have many questions in your mind you want to ask me. And I guess that most people in our society don't have much idea about bankruptcy. People listen, people hear about it, bankruptcy. But what does it mean? We have to identify the meaning, the concept. How can we apply for bankruptcy? Who can apply? Because it's not always the same. Who can apply for bankruptcy? What would lead me to apply for bankruptcy? What the consequences? What would happen to somebody if he or she becomes a bankrupt? Would he or she lose all the money? Would they keep some money? Do we have only one type of bankruptcy? Do we have two types? What we have exactly? We have to look at bankruptcy in general, its meaning, definition, bankruptcy law, and we would look at bankruptcy in the United States and bankruptcy in the UK. If you see that we have only 25 slides, and as I said before, that you can study chapter 5 and chapter 6 from the slides, and 25 slides, it would take us about 2 weeks to finish that. 4 lectures. Then by the end of this chapter we would finish all what we have to finish in this chapter or in this semester. And the first 12 slides, as you can see, I'm going to speak about bankruptcy in general and somehow about bankruptcy in the United States. Then the second half of the chapter we will focus on bankruptcy in the UK, United Kingdom. Despite the fact that bankruptcy is bankruptcy, it doesn't matter in Palestine, UK, USA, it's a bankruptcy. We have a little bit of difference and slight differences we have in the procedures, in the consequences, and on timing. How long will it take to apply for bankruptcy, what the consequences, how much money we can lose. This can be sometimes different from one jurisdiction to the other. But in overall, bankruptcy, it's the same. Don't ask me what's bankruptcy in Palestine because it's the same. Bankruptcy, we have the main principles. Bankruptcy. Now, I guess that at least that some of you would have an idea about bankruptcy. What do you have in your mind? What do you have anyone? Do you know any person in a Palestinian society has applied for bankruptcy? Do you have an idea if there was some companies in the past 12 months in Palestine applied for bankruptcy or not? And I need someone to speak about bankruptcy in general. If you have an example about one of the companies, one of the persons who applied for bankruptcy.
I don't have an example, but I know some stuff about bankruptcy. I know that a company is considered to be bankrupted when it can't pay its debt to the
We cannot be.
creditors.
Yes.
Bankruptcy, I think that it's a legal declared inability or impairment ability of individual organizations to pay their creditors.
Okay, good. That's excellent. Bankruptcy is inability. Someone is not able to pay the money, debts. Someone is in debt, madyoon. But this person, a man, lady, company, fictitious person, natural person, this person is not able to pay the debts. And we have to look at some terms in overall. I would have to write them here. There's some points we have to keep in our minds all the time. If we would like to define bankruptcy, we can say that bankruptcy is inability of the debtor, المدين, inability of the debtor to pay his debts. He's not able, she's not able, they cannot pay the debt. Someone was in debt, مديون. Someone was in debt for £50,000, for £500,000, for £2 million, and is not able to pay. I mean, if you are able to pay the debts, the money, then it's fine. If I can take another 6 months, 1 year to pay the money, it's okay. But if I cannot pay, what can I do? I think this can be an option. This bankruptcy is an option for some people to rescue themselves, to relieve themselves, to be discharged, to be discharged from the debts. So bankruptcy is legal, declared inability. Legal declared inability of, or sometimes you call it impairment. I cannot do it, cannot pay the money, the ability of an individual or organization to pay their creditors. Now, debtors sometimes can be one, sometimes can be more, but most likely we're talking about one debtor and more creditors. شخص مديون مدين and دائنين عدة. Only one, most likely can be one debtor and more than. I can be a debtor, you can be, all of you can be a creditors. So will not be able to pay the debts. If that person can pay the debts, then we will not be able to have bankruptcy. Then we can leave it. Now someone cannot pay. Okay, what can we do with this person? Someone cannot pay the debts. What can we do? Shall we wait until he gets the money? Okay. Well, we have two types, two ways, two methods. Bankruptcy. One of them is called involuntary and the second called voluntary. Voluntary بشكل طوعي. Involuntary, not by force. Now, let's start with this number 2 here. Number 1, voluntary bankruptcy. In which here, it depends who apply for bankruptcy. It can be creditors and it can be, where is that? Debtor. Who submit the case? Is it the debtor or is it the creditor? Who submit the bankruptcy file to the court? Because bankruptcy has to be by a decision. I cannot declare bankruptcy by myself. Even if I say, okay, come on, I'm a bankrupted person, I cannot pay you. This is not enough. No, we have to have a decision by the court. So bankruptcy is the only way to have bankruptcy is by court judgment, by court decision. It's not an individual, it's not a personal decision to be taken by debtor or creditor. It's something has to be taken by a judge. But before we take that decision, we have to have a process, step by step. We have a file. This file here may file ملف, document to the court. This can be here, number 1, voluntary bankruptcy. I can be the debtor. I don't have money. What shall I do? I can go to court, say, well, I surrender myself. I don't have money. I cannot pay you. I shall declare bankruptcy. Submitting the file here, no one can force me as a debtor. No one can force me. You have the freedom as a debtor to submit your file to the court, initiated by debtor. Initiated, submitted. This file is submitted by debtor. That is filed here, filed by the bankrupt individual or organization. Because bankrupt, it can be individual. You can be a bankrupted person. The institute, the company itself can be a bankrupted person. It doesn't matter. In Palestine, sometimes we have to differentiate between if it's a civil case or commercial case. If it's a commercial transaction, commercial institute, someone is dealing with business, we call it bankruptcy. If it's civil, just somebody can declare bankruptcy. But in Palestinian Arabic, we have a different name. في إفلاس وفي إعصار. إعصار وفي إفلاس. إفلاس for if it's business, commercial. إعصار للمدني. In some countries, it doesn't make any difference. It can be the same. It can be the same. We have unlimited liability. it's my money, my business, my personal welfare, I would have to pay. Then if you cannot pay, then you have to declare bankruptcy. Some people will ask many questions later on about the consequences. I mean, if I declare bankruptcy, would I pay the debts or not? Am I going to be responsible for my debts for the rest of my life or not? Then leave it till that time. Leave it till that time. So, number one, voluntary bankruptcy. The file is submitted by debtor. البيلة تلفظ. Debtor. He or she, debtor, would submit bankruptcy petition, اللي هو ملف الإفلاس, bankruptcy petition to the court. No one can force. It's a voluntary اختيار طوعا. Why? Because this person would feel that he or she has no money. It's the only option. And instead of waiting for all of you to ask me, oh, come on, you have to pay the money. You have to pay the money and having cases against me and files against me, complaining against me. No, the only way is to relieve somebody's debt here, to relieve إعفي, to discharge your شخص, is to declare bankruptcy. By declaring bankruptcy, then no one would ask him for anything. He or she would be free. خلاص. You have freedom. If this person was in debt for £500,000, and today all what he has only 100,000, we have to take that money from him, distribute it between creditors. Then what about the £400,000? Okay, well, no one can ask him for nothing. He will be free. This is charged. معفي. خلاص. It's not. Listen, by the way, that in Islam, we don't have something called bankruptcy. In Islam, there is no bankruptcy, but this is in man-made law. In man-made law, there is bankruptcy. In Islam, because, if you are in debt, you are in debt. No one can forgive you unless if they want. That's their only choice. But in Western laws and man-made law, we have today, even in Palestine, up to this moment, what we have in Palestine, we have bankruptcy law, in which somebody, like debtor, can apply for bankruptcy, and the rest of the money he was supposed to pay, no one can ask him for it. He will be free. Someone was supposed to pay a hell of money to the creditors, and he has unlimited liability, but suddenly this person will not pay nothing, because by law he will be free, nothing to pay. Imagine yourself, you're in debt, £200,000. It happens to many people in Gaza and many places in the world. People are in debt and they're not able to pay. Today I was in debt for £1 million, but then I had bankruptcy. I become a bankrupt, insolvency, liquidation. Then in this case, they would take everything I have. They would leave me only some money to survive, to live a decent life. But in the future, if I become a millionaire, no one can ask me for nothing. A debtor declaring bankruptcy, today he's got no money, nothing. Then everyone has to forgive him. Even if it's your choice or if it's not your choice, by law, you will not be able to ask him for anything in the future. خلاص, you lost your money. It's done. You lost your money. That's bankruptcy. Even in the future, if he becomes a multi-millionaire, you will not ask him. This is because this is made for honest debtors. Someone was working in business life here, you might lose, you might win, you never know. This is fate. Business most likely would make profit, but sometimes you would lose. Then if you lose, what can you do? You have two options: either to stay in the business and to make money if you cannot make it, and if you're going to stay and lose more, then you have an option for you: bankruptcy. Again, in Islam, it's not allowed, because how come, like today, I was in debt to all of you. Suddenly, by court, you will not be able to ask me for any penny. You cannot ask me for nothing. But in real life, I still in debt. I did not pay you. It's your money. Then what can you do? By law, you cannot do anything. And we have many cases in Gaza. in Spain, in Egypt, in Jordan, in many countries in the world. We have many cases like this in Europe, thousands of cases like this. Bankruptcy. We're going to talk more about this later on. But the second way to apply for bankruptcy is it's involuntary bankruptcy, in which the creditors together can apply. All of them here, you see that we have 5 creditors, 6, 7, 8, 10. They can have one file, only one case, one petition, ملف واحد. And this is going to be against the debtor. They would ask for his bankruptcy. He did not. He refused to go for bankruptcy, because bankruptcy is a punishment. Bankruptcy means an execution, إعدام. Execution in business. You will not be able to come back to business in the future. It's not easy. You can come back, but it takes many years. And you will not take the same position. We will look at consequences later on, but debtor, once he becomes a bankrupt, it means like we have executed that person in business life. Then those creditors want to punish him and wanted to get money from him as much as they can. This is the case in which we have to look at them again and again. We have to apply such examples in the UK and in the USA. Now, in the first example, we said this debtor was in debt for half a million pound. He was in debt, £500,000, but all what he has today is 150. So we have to take the money from him, but still he's in debt of 350,000 pounds. Then no one can ask him for nothing in the future. Sometimes can be the opposite. You can see this person as a debtor is losing. Today he has 300,000 pounds. Today he has some money. You can claim, you can ask him. Today this person, as you can see, debtor, he has money, but if he stays in business, he would lose the rest of the money. By today, you can see, like, sometimes you look at the business, you can see this business is losing. It's going to close down, because day after day they lose money. So what's happening here? Those creditors want to guarantee that they can get money out of this person. Creditors want to get their money. The only option for them, he does not want to pay. He refuses to pay the money. Then the only way to force Hanin to pay the debts, just we can take her to court. We can, all of us together, we can have one case, one file against her, like, she is in debt, she refuses to pay us, and we want to see her bankrupted. So we can at least, we can get some of our money. Like if she was in debt for £500,000, and all what she has today, half of this money, or maybe 300,000 pounds. But if we know if she stays another 6 months in business, she would lose everything. Now we have to stop her business. We have to take her money. And after we take the money, we can distribute it between creditors. So in involuntary, this is because we have some benefit for the creditors. You might have a question in the exam asking you who can submit the file. How can you distinguish between voluntary and involuntary bankruptcy? They are not the same. This one, voluntary, the case is initiated by debtor because it's the only option for them. They want to survive. They want to free themselves. They cannot pay the money. This is the only way for them. The second, involuntary, which can be by credit. Why? What he has, because they want at least here to secure some of their money. Because if we leave the debtor in the market for extra time, he would lose everything. So at least what he has today, we take it from him. If he stays in the market, he would lose everything and will get nothing. Bankruptcy law. Bankruptcy law. In each country, we have bankruptcy law. In each jurisdiction here, they are not the same. As I mentioned at the beginning, saying bankruptcy law, it's not the same. Are you a student with us here? She's not. What's your name? Class what? Class what? What family? So that you're not a student here? No? Okay, that's fine. Visitor. What do you study? Oh, تعليم أساسي. So do you understand what I'm saying? Good. Not everything. Anyway, bankruptcy law. In bankruptcy law, we have to have bankruptcy law to be able to understand how we can initiate such file. How can I apply today? Like, let's say that one of you, لا سمح الله طبعا, she want to apply for bankruptcy. Let's say Samiha. She's working in business. She looks like a businesswoman, by the way. No, she's working in business, and she want today. She is not successful. She did not make good business, and she want to apply for bankruptcy. How can she do it? What procedures can she take? What steps can she take to apply for bankruptcy? She has to look at the bankruptcy law. This bankruptcy law, Samiha, what does it do?
They want a law that allows creditors who is unable to pay his creditors to resolve his debts through the division of his assets among his creditors.
Okay, debts, plans. Here, we have debts. We have plans. We have a plan, and this plan, it's fine. This plan means we can make the file with the proposal, with the financial aspects, like how much money we have, how much money we still owe, how much money we're supposed to pay. All details, all financial details have to be in one plan. To be able to submit the file to the court, you cannot conceal and نخفي some information. We have to submit everything. We have to submit it. Because sometimes if you conceal some information, then you will be punished for this. We will look at this on due time. This plan, as you can see it, it's something really important. This would allow debtor who is unable to pay, someone is not able to pay, you can make the plan. Say Samiha, she want to make the plan for her bankruptcy. Of course, you will get assistance from a lawyer. This lawyer can be, what's her name? Summer. She's a good lawyer. She works in the market. She can come to assist Samiha. She make the file, really, the names, the type of business, location, the debt, how much money she's in debt, the budget, and how much money she has in the market. You have to explain how much money you have in the market. Because sometimes if you get the money in the market you have, if you invest, you got your money back, you might be able to pay. Maybe. Because you know that in business sometimes you have that circle and cycle of debtor and creditor, and so on and so forth. And then you have to explain in this plan everything. And you have to explain that you are not able. Because here it means that you are not able to pay the money on time. It doesn't mean that you are not able to pay the money in the future. No. Today, you are not able to pay your debts today. If you are not able to pay the debts in the future, no, you cannot apply for bankruptcy. It has to be here decisive. Now, at this time, I'm not able to pay. Then, how can I do? What can I do? I want to resolve my debts. I want to find a solution. The only solution is, how can we divide? Taking my money and divide them through division of his assets among his creditors. Assets here is something we have to keep in mind as well. Assets, ممتلكات. How much money you have, how many cars do you have, the machines, the company, the equipment, the land, everything depends. There's something I would like to explain at the beginning before we go through. There's something really important. We have to distinguish between two things. If we have limited liability, or if it's unlimited liability. What's the difference between them practically in terms of bankruptcy? How can we apply in How can we apply bankruptcy law if it's limited liability or if it's unlimited liability we have? We are talking about the assets. How much money can we take out of the debtor?
In unlimited liability, all assets are exposed to the division of them to creditors. As for the limited liability, not all of the assets, maybe some certain.
Okay, that's a good answer. But by the way, I think it's all the time we have unlimited liability. Why? Because we're talking about the debtor, and the debtor can be the company itself and can be the individual if it's personal or if it's business. We are not talking about shareholders. That's a different case. Shareholders might lose the money they invested, but we are talking about the entity, the business entity, the company itself. The debtor can be the company. Debtor can be person, individual, investor, entrepreneur. Here, this person would lose everything. Would lose the money you have, the amount of money, the car, the machine, the house, everything you own you can lose. We keep something for you to survive. We call it exempted assets. Exempted معفاة. Exempted assets. أموال معفاة. I'm going to speak about this point later on about the exempted assets. I need someone to read this for me here. Dalian.
This supervised division allows the interests of all creditors to be treated with some measure of equality.
That's a good thing you have to keep in your mind. How much money can we distribute? All the money we have. You see, these are the assets of debtor. We take, let's say how much we have, £150,000. How can we distribute the money? We have 25 creditors, and all what I have is £150,000. How can we distribute it here? Equally. We have some types of equality. What does it mean, equality? Are we going to divide £150,000 divided on the 25? Yes, but how? How can we divide the money? About percentage. We look at the percentage, how much money each one of them would have. We look at the percentage measures. We look at this point again later on, which is called here percentage or pro rate. Percentage. And we have two types of bankruptcy. At the beginning we have two types. How can we submit the bankruptcy petition? Voluntary and involuntary. Now we have two types. One of them is called liquidation, تصفية. And the second is called reorganization, إعادة جدول. The one, keep in mind all the time, if I say bankruptcy, if I say insolvency, it means liquidation. That's it. 99% what we mean by this is liquidation. Because if it's not liquidation, it means reorganization, rehabilitation. It means this business can stay. It's not liquidation. Now, up to this moment, all what I've been mentioning here is about liquidation. Liquidation. We take the money, we divide it between creditors. Sometimes we don't have liquidation. We have reorganization, in which you can stay in business. Certainly, certain bankruptcy proceedings, some types of bankruptcy proceedings allow debtor to stay in business. You can stay. Okay, we're not going to take your assets. You're not going to stop business. We're not going to punish you. Stay in your business, but in one condition. You have to pay back. You have to pay not the 150,000. You have to pay the $500,000. All the amount of money. Like, we can give you more time. If it was 6 months, you can take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. As long as you can commit yourself and you can guarantee that you are able to pay the whole amount of money. Then you can stay in business. But why to stay in business? Because how can you pay the money if you can't? Yeah, you have to give money. In the first one, liquidation, you're not going to stay in business. Because if you stay in business, you can lose more and you don't have money to pay anyway. But in the second type, reorganization, you would have to stay in business to be able to resolve the debts, to be able to get revenue, income to pay back. Okay. Coming back again, I mean this point, stay in business, and we call it reorganization. I would look at it later on. Next slide. I would come back now to liquidation. Again, liquidation. Jada.
An additional purpose of bankruptcy law is to allow certain debtors to free themselves.
Free. What do you mean? Like free yourself? Like, this is not for the. This is for the debtors. Free themselves.
To be discharged.
discharge اللي هو إعفاء يعني شخص مو إعفاء.
The financial obligations they have accumulated after their assets are distributed, even if their debts have not been
paid in full. The additional purpose. Next slide we'll look at the purpose again. One of the purpose of bankruptcy is to have discharge, freedom. Can you imagine this in real life? Somebody was in debt for lots of money. Someone was in debt for $500,000, for two. Someone was in debt for £50 million, and suddenly this person would be free. No one can ask you for nothing. The purpose of bankruptcy is to protect honest debtors. This is not for dishonest. It's not for mean people. It's not for people who are deceiving others. Bankruptcy is made only for one purpose, for honest debtors. Someone, like in business, like in life, you do your best. You work in a business, making your best, investing your money. You have the intention to make a profit, but you lose. You lose because this is the market. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. Sometimes you win, and especially sometimes if the economic situation is not stable, like in Gaza. People get food and commodities from the tunnels. Suddenly, the crossing points open. What would happen to your stores? The commodities you have, you might lose. Then if you lose, what can you do? It can be one of the options for you. You want to free yourself. Free yourself because you will not be able to have money. Someone is in debt and cannot pay his debts, then the only way is to free themselves, to be discharged. Keep this in mind again here, discharge. These are, write them down. Discharge, yu'afa. He will be discharged from any debts. After, matter, when? Not from the first minute. Discharge has to be at the time after the assets are distributed. We take all the money you have, we sell in an auction في المزاد, and then the money we have, we can divide it between creditors. And even if this debt was not paid in full, it's fine. And what can we do? All you have £100,000 and you have nothing else. Are we going to sell you? Of course not. No one can buy you. Then the only way is just to forgive. Coming back at the purpose, this can be a question, most likely the purpose. Why do we have bankruptcy? This is the question I will ask again and again. Why do we have bankruptcy? Hany, what do you think? Do you believe in bankruptcy? Is it something good or bad? Why? Bad for whom? Both creditors and debtor? Yes, it is bad for them, of course. What do you think of bankruptcy?
It can be good and can be bad. It's good when the debtor is discharged from some of the debts that he has, and it can be bad when he lost all his money and can't start from.
Yeah.
Start
By the way, some people abuse these procedures, and they have a fraud bankruptcy in which they deceive others. Some cases, we have many cases like this in which people get the money, they hide them, and they pretend to be losing, and they apply for bankruptcy. Those people are cheating on the system. The system here will not protect them. So bankruptcy is only for honest debtors. The problem is sometimes we cannot know if you are honest or not, or dishonest. We can know from the indications. We can look at the files you have. We can look at the statistics and the accounts you have. We might most likely going to have an accountant and You can have a budget. We look at the income and outcome and everything you have. Then we can decide if this person was honest and was dishonest or was dishonest. In all cases here, we have to make sure. We have to make sure. Because some people can get away. So many people get away with some system. Some companies were established from the beginning with the intention to have bankruptcy after 1 or 2 years to make more money. Some young people, they want to make quick money. And we have, if you look at the statistics in Europe, you find tens of thousands of companies applying for bankruptcy every year. Not 1,000, 2,000, tens of thousands of companies applying for bankruptcy every year in Europe. Look at this when you go online and see how many companies. It's unbelievable, the number. Not all of them successful. Some of them can get the bankruptcy, some of them no. But if you get bankruptcy, if you have a decision, final decision by court, it means you might be honest, you might be not, but most likely a court will give a decision based on the information you have and the information provided by the creditors, assuming that you are an honest debtor, unless someone can prove the opposite. If someone else, creditor or anyone else have an interest in this case, can prove that this debtor was not honest, he was dishonest, then we can open the file again. And then he would have to pay everything. Would have to pay everything. And in many cases, some people, they hide money, they make everything in their wives' and their kids' names. They change the house, they write it in somebody else's name, and the cars, and they own nothing. At the end of the day, they pretend to own nothing, and they lost everything. And this is a fraud. It is bankruptcy fraud. We might look at this, but not now, later on. But as I said again, the purpose of bankruptcy, is bankruptcy is to give an honest debtor fresh start. Fresh start. Fresh start. How? What do you mean by fresh start? Coming back to business? Yes. You can come back to business, but it takes many years. It takes some, like in the United States, as we're going to see later on, after 8 years. Problem that if you imagine, like Jayda today is a bankrupt, she is an insolvent, and she comes back to business, are you going to trust her? Like she was in debt for all of you, and she did not pay you. And then after 8, 10, 20 years, she come back to business, and she did not pay her debts to you. Are you going to deal with her? Of course not. It's not an easy decision. It's an execution. Some countries it takes 15 years to come back to 15. It depends on each country. Now, but at the end of the day, can you have? Because I'm saying it's a fresh start for honest debtor, to relieve them from most, not all this, most debts. Because most likely you're going to have some money. You will pay this little amount of money, most likely, and then the rest of the money you will be relieved of. And bankruptcy allows anyone can read? Go on.
Bankruptcy allow debtors to be discharged from the legal obligations to pay monthly by submitting their non-exceed assets, if any, to the justifications of the bankruptcy court for the eventual distribution and
Look at this, non-exempted. This is a question, and we had it last year in the exam. Exempted and non-exempted. Keep it in mind as well. Exempted assets and non-exempted assets. Now, the difference between them: exempted معفية, non-exempted مش معفية. كيف? How this would be? Exempted assets, the money we have to keep for the debtor to survive. Like today, Dahlia, as we said, Dahlia is a debtor, and we come to take her money, to take the assets, to sell and to divide between creditors. But are we going to take everything?
No.
What do you think? Are we going to take everything, all the money?
Of course not.
Of course not. How can a human being live after that? Are we going to throw her in the street? Of course not. She's a human being at the end of the day. She lost because this is the market, this is the business. then we have to keep some money for this person to be able to survive, to live a decent life. We have to keep accommodation, of course accommodation, but not a palace, not a big house, just something suitable for the family size. For the family size, a decent house. We have that what we call, and we leave some money as well. That's what we call exempted assets. معفية. This assets, so these assets, we're not going to touch them. Sometimes we can leave a car even. Some cases we can leave a car for the debtor if he is in need. If he was disabled, for example. He was disabled and he needs the money. He needs the car. If he lives in the countryside and he will not be able to move to the city, there is no transport. I mean, the judge would look at all situation and would keep some money, some assets for the debtor to survive as a human being. This is what we call them exempted assets. Okay? But there's something called non-exempted. What non-exempted? Anything else outside of exempted, we call it anything extra. Anything extra. Any money extra you have, we call it non-exempted assets. Is it clear? Fine. The non-exempted assets, we can take them. So if you have a question in an exam, you have to be careful. Exempted or non-exempted. Okay. And non-exempted, submitting only non-exempted assets, if any. See, if any. If we have, sometimes you don't have nothing. We're not going to take anything from you. If any. 2, jurisdiction of the bankruptcy court. Eventual distribution among creditors. So the purpose here, number 1 is for honest debtor, and number 2 is for the creditors. So number 1, we have to help. This bankruptcy law, bankruptcy process is made initially to help debtors who cannot pay. We help them as much as we can, as long as they are honest. As human beings, we help them. And the second point is creditors. Those people who trusted you, those people who trusted debtors, and gave them the money and gave them commodities and goods, then we have to protect them. How can we protect them? By repaying them. How much? How much would they get? To the extent as much as they can get. To the extent they can get all the money, that's perfect. But most likely they will not. Not most likely, definitely they will not. Because if they can get all the money, it means we have no bankruptcy. It means they might have only half, maybe less, maybe more than half the money they have. Rebate creditors in any orderly means. Manners. Order. They're not the same, by the way. We have 2 types. We have secure and unsecured creditors. I'm going to see them next lecture. We look at secure and unsecured creditors. We have to be secured first. Creditors who have guarantees. And then after that, we have to be unsecured creditors. This point I would explain it in due time, which is going to be next lecture, not today, because it's not. In any way, we have to guarantee that we are helping those creditors. So bankruptcy can benefit both, not only one. Can benefit debtors and can benefit creditors. Meaning here available, has the means available for bankruptcy. Now we'll come back to the same point of liquidation and reorganization, as I did explain before. I'm not going to spend much time, another 10 minutes, then we can go, because we're doing well, I think, in this class. Bankruptcy case. Do you have any presentation today? Oh yes. And next week? Tuesday, do you have anything? That's Tuesday? Okay. Before we come, okay, let's just stop at this point here. Let's just stop at this point. Stay with me just a little bit here. We have bankruptcy case. Look, what can we do exactly? we have the case, we have the petition. Again, the same point I did explain just a few minutes ago. The same point. A petition can be submitted. Petition هي عريضة أو طلب, file. Bankruptcy case is initiated by filing petition. This petition, which includes debtor financial information. This is the most important things. I don't want to know much about the nature of the job and the types of the business and the commodities and how many customers. No, focus on financial information. All things about the money, because bankruptcy is about the money. Inability to pay. Then we have to focus on the information, financial information. Everything has to be filed in a piece of paper, and this is submitted as a petition to the court. This court can be in the area you live, where the debtor lives. We'll look at this later on, we'll come to this point, but this bankruptcy petition, it has to be specifically submitted to one of the court. But which one? Which court? To the court where you live as a debtor, not the creditor, where the debtor lives. Yeah. After we submit, what would happen? The next step. No, sorry about my voice. After we submit the bankruptcy petition to the court, the second step would be, okay, we come to you as a debtor. We collect the assets, everything, collect them. We collect the assets, everything. We can't keep anything. What do you think? What type of assets we collect? Non-exempted. We collect upon filing the bankruptcy petition, debtor assets. I mean here, when you say, always we mean non-exempted assets. Non-exempted assets constitute bankruptcy estate. And this you might have a question in the exam terms. You might have as a question. Those assets we collected, we call them bankruptcy estate as well. Non-exempted assets, the bankruptcy estate. These bankruptcy estate, including any property, like machine, land, house, car, and any cash, and even if you have cash, and any bank account, everything will be collected or will be given to somebody. It's called trustee. This person, the trustee, he is a man or lady responsible for collection of the estate. This person works for the court. By the way, we have to look at later on. We're going to see in this chapter we have two types of trustees. This one is working for the court. He or she would collect the money, the assets and everything, collect them, and would make a date. This for an auction. In that auction, the trustee would sell out everything. Everything, like the cash would keep it. It would keep the cash, but the assets, including the properties, would be sold in an open market, in an auction, and the whole money would be collected and would be divided between creditors. I guess would be enough for now, because we want to make an evaluation and we want to listen to Summer or Dima. Okay, well, now we're going to listen to Dima. She's going to make a presentation for 5-6 minutes, and then we have to make the evaluation. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and we're going to see you Tuesday. Just about the book and the slides and the subjects.